Imagine saving for years to buy back your daughter's trust. Imagine warm sand, a room with an ocean view, and the simple hope that time together might stitch the tear you've both been tugging at for years. Now imagine this. The trip ends, the concierge prints a checkout slip, and only one traveler walks away. Where is the other? And what happened behind those hotel doors? Welcome to True Crime Archives. If you're new here, settle in. If you're one of our returning legends, you already know. These stories don't just ask what happened, they ask why, and they demand to know who paid the price. The story begins long before Bali, in a house where calendars were crowded and love kept odd hours. Rebecca Cooper, a self-made, laser-focused businesswoman, believed a bigger paycheck meant a better life for her only child. Her daughter, Nancy, saw a vacancy sign where a mother should have been. That mismatch, sacrifice measured in dollars versus love measured in presence, built a wall they rarely climbed together. When Rebecca's marriage to Andrew Cooper collapsed after 18 years, the wall became a fortress. Andrew, steady and emotionally fluent, left the house. Nancy never forgave the one who stayed. If you've ever sat between two versions of the truth, one you learn to respect and one you can't help feeling, then you already understand the weather inside this family. Rebecca told herself, "This hustle is for us." Nancy told herself, "This distance is because of you." And the longer that stalemate lasted, the more it started to feel like destiny. When Nancy fell for Ray Jack, older, thrilling, impossible to parent from the outside, Rebecca pushed back. She warned. She grounded. She bargained. And each time Nancy ran further in the direction of the person who always picked up the phone. Ray was an answer to the ache. If her mother wouldn't understand her, he would. Rebecca read the danger. Nancy read the disrespect. Are you seeing the trap? Two people, each convinced they're rescuing the other from a problem they refuse to name. So Rebecca made a Hail Mary play. A week in Bali, five-star hotel, ocean breeze, the whole soft miracle, because sometimes you need to fly far away to finally say what hurts. And for a few days it almost worked. There were photos at golden hour, the kind that make your friends comment, "Finally," and "This is everything." There were poolside jokes, shared plates, a walk through a market where Rebecca bought a necklace she didn't need because Nancy said it looked like summer. If snapshots could save us, this story would end there. But in the spaces between the snapshots, glances down at a buzzing phone, bathroom doors closed too long, the practiced shrug that says it's nothing, another plan was unfolding. While Rebecca planned reconciliation, Nancy planned logistics. Small transfers off a shared card, a flight booked, a second room on the same property, cheap, forgettable, close. The name on that reservation, not Rebecca, not even Nancy. It was Ray. Let's be brutally honest with each other. Redemption and revenge can look the same in low light. To Nancy, this wasn't murder, it was escape. Escape from judgment, from lectures, from a mother whose love hurt because it didn't sound like listening. To Ray, it was power, control, proof that the person who adored him would choose him over everything. If you've ever watched a bad idea dress itself up as salvation, then you know what came next. The night before checkout, a pattern of messages formed a chain the prosecution would later hold up like a necklace of proof. Everything's in place. Door pulled, not latched. And finally, two words that still make the stomach drop. Do it. At just after midnight, the hallway carpet swallowed footsteps the way luxury hotels always do. The door eased open. There are moments so thin you can't recover the oxygen you lose to them. This was one. A still form in bed, a jacket lifted, a blade drawn, a life reduced to a decision. The strike was quick, the plan was cold, and Rebecca Cooper, who crossed oceans to speak her daughter's love language, never saw morning. What followed is the part people assumed they could never do, and the part the evidence insists was done anyway. Sheets stripped, fabric wrapped, weight lifted and folded and zipped into what looked like travel. You know the rest, or at least you think you do. The practiced calm of a checkout desk, a signature that tries not to tremble, a suitcase that smells wrong in a place that smells like orchids and lemon oil. And here enters the first hero of our story, a receptionist named Anna. Hotels teach their front desk to be invisible, to smile and stamp and let people leave. But Anna has a sensor all good front desk people develop, the one that goes off when the story in front of you doesn't match the story on the screen. Two guests checked in, one guest out, a smell that didn't belong to any room spray, a suitcase heavier than it should be. She called security, and the lobby fell quiet in that particular way public places do when everyone senses the air is about to change. The zipper's rasp is a sound you don't forget. The room stilled, a boundary crossed, and somewhere deep inside, both Nancy and Ray understood what was happening. The plan, which required them to look ordinary, had just become the reason no one would ever see them that way again. Bali police sealed the lobby, collected the suitcase, and took two Americans into custody. Phones were seized, texts were exhumed. When the messages were read aloud for the first time, the room learned the difference between a bad moment and a scripted night. It was all there. The stolen funds, the flight confirmations, the second key card, the do it now. International stories don't end where they begin. The U.S. and Indonesian governments moved quickly. Extradition began. The headlines traveled faster than the plane. Mother's body in suitcase. Daughter detained in Bali. Boyfriend alleged accomplice. By the time Nancy and Ray touched American soil in shackles, the public had already chosen sides they didn't fully understand. In court, the defense tried to redraw the map. Nancy wasn't a monster, they argued. She was a wounded child curated by years of neglect, shepherded by an older man who found the crack in her heart and pulled. Ray wasn't a killer. He was a passenger in a collision he didn't know how to avoid. But the prosecution laid out a timeline that refused to cry. The plan, the purchase, the door, the texts, they showed the jury the polite choreography of checkout. The trembling eye of a camera catching two people trying to move an ending through a lobby like luggage. Witnesses testified not only to what Nancy did, but to what Rebecca tried. Therapy appointments made, school conferences attended. The awkward, earnest mechanics of a mother who kept believing the next effort might be the one that worked. These stories didn't erase Rebecca's absences or poor choices. They did something more complicated. They restored her humanity. In true crime archives, we don't deal in saints. We deal in people. And justice soberly accounts for both the harm inflicted and the effort made. The verdict? Guilty. The sentence? Life in prison without the possibility of parole. For both Nancy and Ray. You could feel the weight settle in the courtroom like a stone placed precisely where it must go. On one side, relief that a terrible arithmetic had been completed, a life taken, two lives confined. On the other side, a silence so deep it almost counted as prayer. Was justice served? The law did its work. But justice is a wider river. It asks what we owe the living after the headlines lose their heat. Rebecca was brought home, and buried in a quiet ceremony that didn't trend or trendset. Her grave marker didn't list her job title, her promotion dates, or the number of late flights she took to earn the income that paid for everyone else's peace. It simply read, "Loved, tried." Sometimes the truest epitaph is two verbs. Here's the lesson the story leaves lodged under the ribs. Love cannot heal in secret. It has to be heard to be true. Money can rent quiet. It cannot buy closeness. And when pain gets outsourced to later, later will eventually send an invoice marked due in full. You think that's the end. It should be. But cases like this have aftershocks. 2 weeks after sentencing, a federal forensic accountant flagged something the trial never reached. The trail of funds Nancy used to book Ray's flight didn't start in her mother's card. It started earlier. Two small deposits from a shell LLC with no real business, then a transfer from an account formed 6 months prior. The same month, Rebecca emailed Nancy an itinerary titled "Just Us." The LLC's registered agent? A mail drop. The signature? Illegible. The originating IP for the flight booking? Masked by VPN. But the time zone wasn't Bali, it was New York. Meanwhile, the hotel's back-of-house keycard log, buried under a vendor ticket and only discovered when the property upgraded its system, reported one more entry on the crime night timeline. A master key was used on the room's door 12 minutes before the attack. Security cameras caught a partial silhouette at the service corridor camera. Hood up, shoulders squared, stride unhurried. Not Ray, taller, not Nancy, narrower. And on Anna's last day at the hotel before she moved back to her hometown, she found a plain envelope under her door. Inside, a single room service receipt from that night stamped "void." A photo of Rebecca from the lobby security feed circled in red, and 5 words printed by label maker. She wasn't the only target. What does that mean? Who funded those starter deposits before Nancy touched a dollar? Who held that master key? And if this was about escape for Nancy and control for Ray, who exactly wanted it to look that simple? Listen, part of telling these stories responsibly is refusing to pretend the last gavel drop is the last truth. So I'll ask you straight, did the system get the right people for the wrong plot? Did we punish the participants and miss the architect? Or is this just the echo of paranoia that follows every conviction? Either way, our work isn't finished. Because if there was a hand behind the curtain, someone who understood how to move money, masks, and master keys, then Rebecca's case isn't just a domestic tragedy that metastasized on vacation. It's a template, and templates get used again. We'll keep digging. In the meantime, hold this close. Love is not a performance you can outsource to a postcard and a plane ticket. If you're trying to fix a fracture, say the hard thing today. If you're trying to leave a control artist, tell someone with power to help you. And if you ever feel that the calm around you has been engineered, assume you're not the audience. You're the mark. I'll leave you with the picture that won't stop flickering. A lobby at sunrise, a receptionist who trusted her gut, a suitcase that briefly pretended to be anything but a coffin, and a ledger somewhere in New York that just blinked awake because someone opened the wrong file. If you found this story gripping and you want the next chapter the moment we publish it, like, comment, and subscribe. In part 2, we follow the money, decode the master key, and ask the question no one dared at trial. Who else was in that hallway? And why are they still free?